It's time to feel alive again. Extraordinary Lovers Luxury Couples Retreat is designed to ignite your sexuality, communication, and ease with your partner, all while enjoying the bounties of paradise. Join world-class Tantra teachers Laurie Handlers and Michael Gibson as they share how to access new levels of ease, trust, and intimacy. Drink in the gorgeous oceans and beaches of Roatan's most luxury private resort. This small by design retreat will not only make you feel safe to explore with your partner, but also find true depth and connection with other couples in attendance. This retreat includes 7 days and 6 nights of accommodations, all your meals included, and full days of transformational processes and teachings, all situated on a picturesque, clothing-optional beach and forest. Book now to reserve your spot in Roatan with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Laurie Handlers, and you are listening to another episode of Sex and Happiness, a show about your sex and your happiness. And today I have a guest who was on with me years ago in the beginning of time. What I said to him was, it was in prehistory. We were on a long time ago, probably not even on Sex and Happiness, but more likely in my previous show, Tantra Cafe. And I think that's how long ago we were on together. And he sent me an email recently, and I just went, you need to come on my show. It's been way too long. So let me tell you a little bit about him, and then I'll tell you what we're going to talk about today. Galen Fous. He lectures internationally at universities, grad schools, psychology conferences on psychological dynamics of sexual fantasy. Ooh, I like that. Sexual authenticity and untangling shame, fear, and trauma from sexual desire. All a noble and wonderful cause. He's on the faculty of the Modern Sex Therapy Institute, where he offers CE approved class for therapists. That's continuing education approved classes. Yes, topics include kink and sex positive psychology and sexual integration therapy, a sex positive alternative to the sex-porn addiction treatment model. Wonderful. Welcome to the show, Galen Fous.
It's a pleasure to be back for round 2.0 with you, Laurie. And I can only imagine all the adventures we've had in between then and now. But what you spoke into of your introduction, I think brought us right up to speed.
Good.
For me,
and today we're going to talk about sexual integration theory and therapy, this different model from what is the porn addiction treatment, et cetera. So we'll talk about that in a bit. We'll get to this subject in a little bit, but this is, I just want to talk a little bit about the first time we did a show together, you actually talked about kink and how it connected to healthy sexuality. I mean, that's what I remember. And I remember this for my listeners to know about my growth. You know, I remember going like things you were saying, I was like, and I was like, ooh, this is exciting. I mean, talking to you opened up my mind to the concepts of kink. And then I was open to it when my dear friend and student, Om Rupani, invited me to sample kink and then to create a course together. And I credit you. I just want to thank you and credit you with opening my mind up to whatever I had as judgments. I had a lot. And like just my talk with you opened up the wheels to spin. So thank you. So you indirectly had a lot to do with me opening up to possibilities that I hadn't even considered.
Yeah, wonderful. It's just the power of speaking your truth. You know, if I speak my truth, I have no idea what the impact might be, but here's an impact, and it's a wonderful yeah, it stimulates and inspires others if they can view someone speaking about a subject that's very difficult to speak comfortably about or reasonably about. And I think that's really what it is. It is a reasonable proposition, after all, our sexuality, certainly, but we treat it like it is just a slimy, don't lights out, look, gaze away from it. And I think we're both on that same mission, is to illuminate those areas and help people see that this is, yeah, it's quite natural, it's quite wonderful, and it's quite normal.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And so thank you. I owe you that thanks. Now let's talk a little bit. How did you, when you were growing up, who were you growing up to be? Like, were you growing up to be who you are now? Or did you make a deviation like I did, from like a narrow world of this is what's expected of me. I'm supposed to be a school teacher, and I'm a sex educator. Who would have thought it? So were you always on this path, or did something happen that made you make a turn?
Well, something happened that made me accept the truth, and consequently a turn. But I think throughout my life, even as a boy, before puberty, in fact, which in my research is not that uncommon for people to have a vivid sexuality going on in some way or another, before the age of 10 years old or by the age of 10. Some 40% in my research survey indicated that was true for them. And it wasn't a random survey, but among sex positive people, more population. But I thought that was a significant thing. But that was personal for me. I was these two characters, right? I kept what I call my sex creature, you might say, and I say that affectionately, as a distinct part of my psyche, and I think it's a part of everyone's psyche in the same way. It's a distinct part of us that has a whole different persona than my everyday persona. It looks at people differently. It has a presence and a energy that's totally different than my way we're talking right here. It's another element that switches on when we're aroused. That's what comes alive, is that part of us that is a distinct part for, I think, everyone. So for myself anyway, yeah, I recognize these two parts of me. So in terms of the social persona, I was like the kid in the white hat. I was always the good with the good guys, and admired, aspired to that kind of heroic masculine, and for standing for good, fighting for good, those kinds of elements were inspiring to me. But in the meantime, I was kinky as fuck as a child. By 10 or 11, I was, starting to, you have quite an imagination of what the sexual possibilities were, being solo with not having, a partner at the time, but yearning for that, desperately in a way. As I got older, just that part of me wanted to dance in a way. It was like an athlete almost. It was ready to, or a dancer, that really, like I said, it was way more mature than I was psychologically. In a way, I didn't have any conscious grasp of that when I was a teenager at all. I mostly was in the fear of just hiding that part of myself, out of fear of getting caught, judged, shamed about it. And I knew I would, but I did not feel any shame myself. I really enjoyed, and saw like, wow, this is quite a rich territory here of pleasure. But my journey basically from there was hiding, still aspiring to the positives and the goods, and being in service and things that I aspired to, but at the same time not having a place for my sexuality until in my late 40s. Finally, a lot of things happened, but one was I just made the choice I'm going to live authentically as a kink-oriented man, basically, into power exchange energy. So, that was really the shift. That was calamitous to do that as well, quite calamitous. for me personally, and normal and ruinous even. But I made my way through that, and because of what I understood about how challenging it can be for someone to own the truth of their sexuality and stand in pride in it and speak the truth about what you are, despite what may come. If you get pushed to that point, you have a right to privacy, it's nobody's business, but if you get pushed to that point where you can just say, no, this is what I am, that's not changing. No, it's a boundary there, and just be powerful in that, yes, affirming, your truth. This led me to be able to be in a position, because I went through it, of being kind of at the gate, so to speak, when people came who were also trying to make it across that chasm between what they desired and who they were authentically, and how they were hiding, or holding back from that, to help them prepare for the journey, to step into that, because it's a very complicated thing to do, really. Not impossible, but it's not easy.
Well, it's a little easier
times maybe it's very easy. Yeah. So this was over 20 years ago I'm talking about, and it was much more, I was viewed like a villain, and I was made an outcast in my community because of what was inferred about me being into consensual adult level kink play. Basically, was viewed as right down there with the rapists and molesters and, things like that. So it was a tough fire to go through to get to my authenticity. But I was blessed to get through it. And then I was out, because before I was hiding, I was not showing the world who I was, and I was sneaking. I was not being, in integrity. So, and this is what leads to this idea of sexual integration, is exactly what I'm talking about.
It's so good.
Bringing your sexuality into integrity with the rest of your life.
That is, so that's really what you mean by it. Sexual integration means like you are congruent. Who you are by day is also who you are by night. It's not, you're not hiding, you're not in the shadows, you're actually for and in favor and standing up for who you are. And I get it, because I think, we might have almost been on a show together. My show, my Tantra Cafe, was around like 15 years ago. So when I first talked to you, that was a part of me that I didn't even acknowledge. And I remember talking to you and going like, wow. And a little, it was a little weird for me. And now it's like, when your email came across, it was like, I can't wait to talk to you again. And, but I understand, because when I also discovered Tantra in my late 40s, I discovered Tantra. I knew about it in my 30s, and probably I knew about it intuitively before. But, and it was something that was intuitively, I knew there was something else to sexuality that was a blend of everything. It wasn't just the sex act, but it was, there was something more to it. It was deeper. There was a deeper connection to what I didn't know. But it took me until I was 46 to find a teacher. So I too had this, I'd go to have a drink somewhere, and I'd be sitting next to somebody at a bar, and they'd say, so what do you do? And I go, I teach a kind of yoga. I didn't know how to explain.
See how they respond to that.
Right. I didn't know how to explain what I did. There was no way to explain it. And so I understand, but it feels to me like you went through a personal fire. The gates you're talking about could have been interpreted as the gates of hell in your effort to be authentic, like authentically who you are, and authentically not ashamed of what was not seen as normal, or, now we call it vanilla.
Yeah, and I think I was a special case of the times where it was quite severe, but I don't think that's the case for most people. Now, if they're coming out, again, most people will never know if you don't let them or want them to know, and some people might get discovered, and that can, but there's definitely, this is why I just published or just submitted for publication a paper on fetish sexuality as sexual identity, or sexual orientation rather. And this is important in the sense of civil rights and human rights, of validating, establishing that there is a population in the gene pool of people who are driven by the energies of a power exchange and are seeking out that in a negotiated mutual way with a partner, but of the opposite polarity. And that this is normal for this section of the gene pool by the APA standards, which is, that's who they are attracted to, people of similar ilk. And then that's who they also want to form relationships with, lifelong relationships. And that is for, and they want to be engaged in community, which is quite evident and prevalent in the kink communities worldwide, so they meet all the criteria except for gender, is the way it's termed by the APA. And we're in the paper promoting the idea that could be expanded to include other factors other than just simple gender attraction as what makes something a sexual orientation. And in this case, fetish, what I call fetish sexuality. Like homosexuality, it's a distinct phenomenon in the gene pool that a certain percentage of people are. And once that's established, then there are rights for housing, child custody, employment, and other areas of discrimination that if it's not shown that, oh, this is a normal for the people who are, it's not a deviation, they're not disgusting or deviant people, they are simply who they are and has nothing to do with the legal matters at hand. That's what I'm pushing for, advocating for, is to bring it to that level.
That is fantastic. Needed and necessary. So thank you for doing that. Wow. So there's something that I'm going to get right into the heart of the matter here. Like, you're saying that there's something called sexual authenticity disorder. Oh, first let's define APA. Is that American Psychological Association?
Yes, American Psychiatric Association, actually, in this regard, the DSM level regard, and APA is just similar.
Okay. And then there's something called sexual authenticity disorder.
Yeah, it's a disorder that I made up because it's not in the DSM of any kind, but I think it fits the symptoms of what I see in my clients that I work with. And in reporting, in the world, that you just see so many people. I mean, I think we're in an epidemic of sexual secrecy, people leading secret sex lives. They are not being honest about who they are, and they are operating via the internet, very convenient way to access, at least digitally, what they might be aroused by or curious about. I mean, it is a great way that people are learning to explore. Wow, there's a breadth of sexuality going on out there that they had no idea about previously. And so this is, I think I lost my train of thought right
so
there.
We were talking about sexual authenticity disorder. And you were saying that.
Thank you. Yeah, I got it. So this is.
People are hiding, and there's and for good reason, but they're finding their arousal on the internet.
And coming alive, I mean, it's a place where they're accessing a part of themselves interiorly, psychologically, in the external digital world. It's resonating with this inner part of themselves that's coming alive. Now, there's certainly a compulsive element to it, or an out of control behavior level that someone can get to in the use, but in another way, they are simply accessing, engaging their sexuality in a way. But that isn't the problem. The problem is the secrecy, the hiding, the lying, the cover up, the covering your tracks, and this whole psychological terror interiorly. Did I cover my tracks? And this having to lie again. Where were you? What time? And this is a terrible, I think, epidemic that that you see weekly almost in the newspapers of another clergy or politician or sports figure busted in some illicit affair that they weren't being honest about. They were operating in this totally secret way, in a very vigorous way, in secret. But so this is what sexual integration is to. So sexual authenticity disorder, rather, is the fear of revealing or others discovering the true depth and frequency and nature of your sexuality. And this, to me, more accurately describes what I see going on in the culture than that someone has an addiction, that they are psychologically or physically addicted to sex or porn now, and this is like a disease, and that they need to be treated in a pathological way for. Whereas I look at sex porn addiction, quote unquote, as the symptom of a deeper psychological conflict that the person has, often around coming forward. Hey, this is who I am, and I didn't want to tell you because I was so afraid of your judgment or ostracization. And this is what I think many people. So I won't say, sex porn addiction is working for someone if they find treatment and that's working for them. That's fantastic. They're in the right place. But for those who that's not feeling like that's really what I need or what's true for me, this is an alternative. I think it's important to have these alternatives, because if there's only one game in town and that's not working for that person, then they're really stuck. They're in a terrible place, if they need help, and there's this one avenue isn't helping them. So this is what led to the creation of sexual integration therapy and practice, was seeing a need for clients to be able to look at themselves in a different way. This is a different model of how someone in the same conditions can lens to look through about what is going on, and learning, what do they want. And so the want is important, because this is where sexual integration theory starts with this idea of sexual authenticity. Not only that, but sexuality as a birthright, is this person's human right to be who they are sexually. And, so you have every right to look at whatever porn you want or have whatever kind of sex you want. And it's up to you to regulate it in a way that, and this is where I teach, and then how do you bring that out into integrity with, the rest of your responsibilities and agreements and all such things. So sexual authenticity disorder is, the treatment is to become sexually authentic.
Right. And it makes perfect sense to me. It's like, to me, it's congruent. And until somebody is congruent with all of it, they can't really rest. They can't really rest at night. They're always like, that secrecy has to be like a plague. So
it's a horrible burden for the individual to carry, because of the cultural limitations or perspectives that aren't encouraging of much of a deep look about sexuality, or that it gets to be a part of the equation. So I mean, the sexuality is birthright means you're with a partner. Well, no, you get to say how often, what kind, and how much sex you're in for. They can say, oh, I'm not into any of that. Well, then you got to deal with that. But, you have the right to present your side of the coin and negotiate with your partner in a fair way about, okay, we're way different. So how is this going to work? There has to be a yearning to, well, we have to work this out, don't we? Because here it is, and if you love each other, then, you have to learn to make room for the truth of your partner's sexuality, or you can't be together. It's as simple as that.
I imagine that's like a 50-50 crapshoot, like depends on how buried. It's just my imagining, depends on how buried their true sexuality was to begin
Some
with.
people can't do it, they're too stuck in this old paradigm, that they can't shift from, and therefore then the relationship will just blow up. And that happens, or someone will be so incredibly stifled that they'll turn into nothing, that they have no life left in them because they yielded this incredible life force that is their right to be. So this idea of birthright, I don't hear enough of that. People really get, oh, I can say what I want. When it isn't just up to my partner to say, well, I'm not into that. And then it's like, oh, okay. That's
Right.
not a
Okay,
fair
I'll
fight.
go away. Right. I'll
know?
take it off the table. No, I really understand that. I mean, I've always felt that in my workshops, I mean, since forever, I always felt like when people come as singles to a workshop, even if they happen to be part of a couple, but they attend a workshop in Tantra or in Tantra meets BDSM or ISTA or whatever it is that I'm doing, when they come together as a couple, they always have more of a difficult time because there's so much that has been left unsaid. And that, they catch each other like looking around, at the other people and they make up stuff about all that. So I can imagine. So I have encouraged people often to come to class alone, even if they're part of a couple, so that they're free to explore whatever it is that they came for. And then the other partner come, like assuming that there are two, I'm not assuming that either, but that the other one or two partners or however many come, and they have a solo experience too before they do a together experience. So at least they've had a chance to look, this is your sexuality. This is who you are as a sacred sexual being. So I hear what you're saying, and I imagine the difficulties depending upon what the kink is or what somebody's tastes are or what their arousal is, what their turn on is. It can be difficult to negotiate, especially if they came into something hiding. There's
someone was busted, then it's a much more complicated.
There's the piece I didn't know about myself until I did. And then there's the piece that, oh, well, I've always known this about myself, but it's been shoveled way down. And I could never tell you. I can imagine there's that's tremendous.
Some people go to the grave and never show this part of themselves because there's such a fear of revealing oneself. This is the extreme fear. That sexual authenticity, didn't put that in. It's an extreme fear. And it is that's what's going on, is extreme fear, just to say, oh, I like to be spanked or tied up or to tie somebody up. These things are, and again, I don't know what the pulse is out there totally. I think it is much more liberalized at this point. It's not such a shocking thing anymore. But I know for the generations, from the 40s on up, I'm sure still quite busy with the struggle to be who they are. They don't even haven't come to the place, oh, I want to be who I am. But this is what's interesting. Most of my clients, when they finally come and they're saying, I'm really tired of hiding. I'm just worn out. I'm just, and then there are the ones, I got busted. So now they're in that place. But people don't want to be doing this. It's so wearying on their soul to carry this burden constantly on. So, I think the good news is that doesn't have to be that way. And you can have your sexuality can be a part of your life and an enjoyable part of your life, along with all the other wonderful things and aspects of who you are as a human being might be. This is the integrated, it can come to the table. I have this saying of, sex has been the bastard of human personality for thousands of years, and it's now stepping up to the table. It will speak now at the table. It's not going away. It's out of the bag. And if you don't do something about it in a way that brings it to a mature perspective and a mature approach, it will run away. It is a wild thing, so it needs to have a mature, responsible adult with it, along the way, I think.
Right.
Meaning the person has to have that element within themselves, their own maturity to operate their sexuality.
Now, I imagine that you have a very tremendous practice. I mean, how many, do you have even any idea about how many other therapists there are like you? I just feel like you're so unique. I mean, I talk to a lot of therapists because I have lots of guests on my show, but you're really unique. Like, one, you see this as a freedom and a right and a passion, like so many things. So I imagine that you have this, blossoming big practice. I hope you do.
I hope so too.
I hope people find you.
Yes. Well, this is helping. So this is what it's about. But that is my mission. So, I go wherever I can and speak to these things, because I think I'm not hearing this particular spin or theory, say model, being developed to look at our sexuality and our relationships and things. But so these are I'm on my path, and it's starting to, just at this moment, it's just been, moving pretty slow, and it's starting to blossom a bit more.
Beautiful.
Now, it feels good.
I'm glad. Now let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned in what you wrote to me that there are something like 5 keys to integrate your sexuality into your everyday life. I'm imagining, I imagine keys to things like doing emotional release, and mine would be doing emotional release, moving in the unknown, speaking your truth. So what are your 5 keys? I have like 10 that I live by. So what are your 5?
Yeah, and that's the truth is this is personal. This is my own experience that these have come to light from just working with people and seeing these areas. And again, they can be made more or taken out, whatever. It's just because it is personal. You want to find your own way, but I find a good model to work from that usually helps people to think about it is to start with first, number 1, sexual authenticity. And this means, as we talk about your birthright to be who you are sexually, and what it looks like and how often and all those things, or to be able to have the freedom to explore if you're uncertain or don't want to know yet. You have the right to learn and educate yourself physically in all matter. To really get the sense of that, I believe. But it is up to the person. But it is all about, you get to be who you are, find who that is and claim it and celebrate it. It's a gift to yourself and your partners.
Good.
So the second step is sexual honesty. So now that you know who you are and what you're about, how do you speak honestly about it to those closest to you that you might want to share this with, especially if you've been someone who's been hiding or not being honest. This is, and again, to feel your right to be who you are, to say, yeah, this is how, no, any more than, hey, I love to play tennis, this shouldn't be any more of a burden to say that you play tennis or like tennis, that you get to say, cheerily how, what kind of sex you're into, but also understand, that can be complicated, how to speak, and the way to open someone else to explore with you, etc. But the third part is embodiment and empowerment, and this is they're very kind of intertwined, but this is to accomplish these ecstatic places of our sexuality. It's very important to learn to practice being present, embodied in your breath, to practice movement, to get anything that you can get yourself enlivened, your body, meaning when you do that, you're going to be more present, just because of this activity that your nervous system is undergoing by activating all of this things there. So this is a way big topic, and you know a lot about this topic yourself and teach about it, but this getting to presence and embodiment, understanding embodiment, and also the ability to embody the sexual persona authentically, just make through the little thing, the physical restraints that we've done for decades to not let them express. When we try, they can be a little clumsy or awkward. So you can just, but to learn to yeah, you can say exactly what you want to say. You know, you can do, enact when in a consensual agreement. You can step into these different energies, primal energies, fierce, intense energies, in polarity with another, in a way that, yeah, you want to fully embody that, whatever that is, because that's where the juice is. That's where the
Exactly.
potency is. So, and this is a practice of almost getting out of the way, but because this already has an authentic voice and movement and way it looks and knows what it wants and all such things, in my experience anyway. So the fourth one then is sexual shadow, and this is to, if I've been decades into how I've been hiding or holding back or covering up or not stepping forward to speak up, been hold all those things about me for decades, to be aware, start to examine those, and so you educate yourself about your own little trickster kind of things that have been habitual, that might want to not give up so easily, because they have often had authority over someone because of the fact of hiding and such. So a good examination of that can be helpful to move away from, understand what you don't want to be doing, and I'll be on the lookout for if that wants to slip in, if you know that you can, you might have a little chance to stop or shift, do something different at that moment. As a practice that you can do. And then the fifth one is probably the most important, is paradox. And this is, in the monotheistic cultures, things have been good and evil, black or white, right or wrong kind of concepts that we get stuck in, and the human body and human sexuality got put into one of the devil, of the flesh, you know, of this corrupt nature. The animals do that, and we kind of idealize this other state of almost like asexual being, and our sexuality always rode at the end of the wagon train or across the tracks. You know, still hung around, but it wasn't let into polite society, right, so to speak. So, but we suffer, most of my clients, myself, I think all of this sexual secrecy is from this inability to see things as a paradox rather than this black or white, right or wrong. In other words, to know that, oh, I can be a dominant erotic sadist, you know, heavily into kink with consensual partners, and still be a good parent, a good member of my community, in service in the world, devoted in my particular faith, maybe, or all the things, you know, that any human being might be doing. We have in the past felt, oh, we will be disgraced, we will be ruined, it will be thrown out. Oh, I'm a slut, I'll be disparaged, you know, and open up the opportunity that someone could take advantage of that in divorces or other kind of scandal-driven kind of things, and to recognize that you're both, you know. One does not negate the other. I can still be as sexual as I choose, as I want, as I am, and it has no impact. In fact, it enlivens all of me to be able to be honest and truthful about who I am. While I'm being honest and truthful, my intention is to be honest and truthful in all regards, you know, in my life, and it's no perfection in that, but I'm, you know, I'm moving down that path, and I've traveled it to where I know how important it is to do so. I mean, I've enhanced my life greatly, and that of others, by really learning to be honest with myself and to others, you know.
Yeah, I can see that. That's like a key. Living in secrecy hurts. It's stressful. It causes all kinds of inner turmoil that leads to disease, et cetera, et cetera. So living in the truth is definitely a freedom. And I understand what you mean. Like, one thing because I like to be tied up doesn't mean that I can't be a this or that or the other, or I have fantasies about this, that doesn't mean anything in terms of what I do in the world or in terms of how I am as a parent, etc. All the things that you're saying, I understand that. It's really, I love the thought that you've given to this. I love I know it came from a place of pain and whatever. Like, we teach the best what we need to learn. And like, so I know that you struggled. I feel you as you speak about it. And then it's making me think about all these other people that I know and how they struggle with whatever it is. Literally, I don't think there's any other way to be as an adult, except like really authentic who you are. And you can't leave this out. This is such a big part. This is the vital life force and how it gets expressed. So,
and I think that individual work will have a collective effect. The more I can work on myself, the better myself. And lots of people doing it. We're just going to get along a little better if we're all noticing more about our stuff rather than your stuff.
Yes, exactly. All I can say is like, thank you, thank you for doing this work. Yeah, thank you for whatever you've paid and now what you're doing, like to give back and help other people so they can make it a little easier for them.
Yeah, totally worth the cost.
I watched
happy to be here.
I watched the show on, I'm watching more television than I ever have in my life. I have had television sitting in my house, inactive, inoperative. I canceled my TV service a long time ago because I didn't watch. But because of COVID, I'm watching things on the computer or what have you. And I watched the show Transparent, which was, I guess, an Amazon series about somebody who was trans, a man who then, came out to his wife and she accepted him. They got a divorce, but they were always in each other's lives after that. And it was so much easier when she came out to her wife, and said, it isn't just that I like wearing your underpants, but this is always who I've been hiding. And the family accepted it, et cetera. It was a very interesting show. And I just think of everybody, so many people that I know who live in integrity now with their sexuality. And I don't know of any other time in history that it could have happened, except maybe old Roman times, Greek or Roman times or what have you. And then it was only for the privileged, like the only people.
The jet sets of every age has been rocking their sexuality and pleasure, been out, all the things. And while the masses were getting, be devout, that's a sin, don't do that. So, this is the first era where humanity has kind of gotten a chance to live a life of pleasure, explore that pleasure. I mean, it is, as much as there's certainly so many things that are important in life to focus on, neglecting this isn't going to improve any of those. And by paying attention to it, you might have more energy, more passion coming up to apply to these other missions you might have in life, And I think no matter how, it's just like any other basic survival of food, shelter, clothing, your sexuality should be right in there. Not something to be kept in the closet, and tucked away because, I shouldn't be wanting so much, or something.
Right.
It is, the time is now. And, I think this is what we're both cheering for is, people, take the path, and it is a path. If you step out into this on your own, you will eventually find your way, I think, if you're really trying to find your way. But that's the problem is, over the last 20 years or so, like this wave of eros that has come over the planet has been like a teenager, like reckless, irresponsible, uneducated, taking risks that had no right to take kind of level, or violations that certainly had should never have happened. And this is because that energy needs some maturity to come along with it, to really let it run wild. You need to know when to leash and unleash your sex creature, as I said.
Exactly. So good. Well, let's find out how people get in touch with you, because someone may be listening today that, I have a lot of listeners, and I've been at this for a long time. Someone may be listening today who needs to talk to you. What's the best way for them to find you?
Well, I encourage anybody in that realm of thought to take the step, and you could do so by Googling, or I'll start with my website is galenfous.com. One word is GALENFOUS.com, or Google Galen Fous, Fous. You'll find my social media and all that. But yeah, if you're interested in contacting me, just go to the Galen Fous website, and there's how I work with clients and all the other info is there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for doing what you do. Thank you for sending me an email that made me want to get in touch with you and say, come back on my show. Let's talk about where we are now. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Laurie. That was great to be here. I'm grateful for your audience and a chance to renew our connection and see what happens next.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're both rocking it good and hard as we can.
Yeah, and, as we age also, that's a whole other topic.
So bless you for that. I mean, that's amazing, Laurie.
Yeah.
How much energy you're putting out, and you look like you're thriving about it. You're just radiantly in your body, just, present like that.
Thank you. Feels really good. I feel better than ever. And I'm, like I said to you earlier, I'm planning to live. I'm not planning to die. So I'm planning for life and life and life and life. And that's who I am. So, all right. I want to tell you, I thank you so much. I thank my audience. I thank everybody for joining us today. And I encourage you all to come back next time, and I will have another amazing guest. You never know who I'm going to have on this podcast that is going to make a difference in your life or to the life of your loved ones. So tune in next time. I'll be back with somebody amazing. And Galen, thank you. Thank you again. Thank you for the work.
My pleasure.
All right. Okay, I'm saying namaste to everyone.